All right, so our next case takes place in Wilmington, Delaware. A little background about Delaware itself. Although Delaware was a slaveholding state, they didn't side with the Confederacy, but they still had their own issues with discrimination and a lot of racial issues when it came to black people. Just because they didn't side with the Confederacy doesn't mean that they didn't benefit from slavery, and that mentality of being superior to black people didn't run rampant in the white community within Delaware. It's important we know these things. Now, a lot of people think Brown versus Board of Education was just like about education. They were actually fighting segregation. Like, that was the main thing. Now, of course, they were fighting the school board, but they were fighting segregation on a large scale. So what was taking place in Wilmington, yes, had a lot to do with schools, but it had a lot more to do with how black people were treated in the spaces that was created for them. Now, Belton versus Gebhardt, which is the case we're talking about here, this was filed in 1952. And the NAACP Wilmington chapter, their attorney was named Lewis Redding. He was actually the only and the first African-American lawyer within the state. Now, the thing about a lot of these NAACP lawyers is that they have something deep within this case. Like, they've had their fair share of segregation and discrimination, being discriminated against, being terrorized and threatened. So, like, these are things that they're fighting for because it's affecting them. All right, but let's talk about the case, Belton versus Gebhardt. This took place in Claymont, Delaware. And the reason this case came to the courts is because students had to walk 20 miles round trip to go to and from school. 10 miles there, 10 miles back. Sometimes leaving some 2 hours before school starts. So they ruck marched all the way to Wilmington, Delaware. And they went to a school called Howard High School in Wilmington. Mind you, within their own city limits was a perfect white-only school. When I say perfect, it was spacious. They had a lot of empty classes. And not to mention the curriculum was far better than black school. But those poor black babies had to walk past that school to walk 10 miles to their school just to get an education. A lot of these schools during this time, not just in Delaware, this was in Wilmington, all over the South, black schools didn't have adequate anything. Some of them didn't even have running water. It was just so bad. Now, once the black parents decided we ain't got to put our kids through this shit and we can fight back against this, they decided to reach out to the NAACP to talk to Lewis Redding. He recommended them petition the school board to see if they would allow their students, their kids to attend these white schools. That way, when the school board said no, they had something to prove in court. The person that brought this petition to the school board, her name was Ethel Brown. And then there was also, I believe, 9 other parents. Now, like I said, this case is called Bula versus Gebhardt. Bula is actually a little girl. I believe she was in 2nd grade. And she had to walk 2 miles every day in order to get to school, even though there was a school bus that drove past her every single day. Every single day, she still had to walk 2 miles. The only thing was the school bus only transported white students to school. Now, Sarah's mother, she did write a lot of letters objecting to this, to the school board, the Department of Public Instruction, a lot of different things, but it went unanswered. Now, the only reason Bula and a lot of these parents decided to go to the NAACP is because the state defended this. They basically said I'm going to actually read what they said. Delaware's Constitution denies African American children space on buses for whites. And that's when she was like, okay, well, we need to fight the Constitution. Delaware's Constitution. And that's how we have the Bula and Belton v. Gebhardt. So 2 different people, but under one court case. Gebhardt comes from a board member on the school board. They were suing them for not giving them adequate, proper transportation to and from school, but offering that for white students. That their 14th Amendment. Now, the cool thing about this court case is this is actually one of the only court cases that was won in lower courts. Now, the other 4 cases, they actually were denied in lower court, so they had to appeal and bring it up to the Supreme Court. This case, actually got some shit done the first go round, but not without a lot of pushback. For instance, remember that word equalize I mentioned in part 1 of the case before this one? So if you don't know what I'm talking about, equalize is what schools and a lot of these establishments would say they would try to do when it came to making facilities equal for black people in regards to white people. So they'll say, okay, I'm gonna throw $10 at it. I'll invest $10 a year toward this black establishment, and we're working toward equalizing it. So there isn't really an objective. The only objective really is to equalize. And I've invested, I'm working toward equalizing it. So We can just agree on that. I mentioned that because that is something that they tried to propose in this case. Gephardt v. Wait, no, not Gephardt v. Bula v. Gephardt, or Belton v. Gephardt. Now, even though this was proposed, Reading wasn't going for that shit. No, we're fighting segregation. We're not fighting for equalization. Although, if I may, I'm just saying. Never mind, let me hush. The facts. After pointing out the discrepancies in not just the education material, but in the facilities, the transportation, the lack of transportation, the treatment of these students, it was very evident that anybody with a fucking working brain is going to say, okay, yeah, this shit is wrong. And that was the case when Chancellor Colin Seats, he decided, okay, yeah, this shit is wrong. He did rule that the whole separate but equal under Plessy v. Ferguson was violated, but it only went as far as the students that was involved in that case. And when I say only those students, I mean, like, even though this court hearing this case was okay, yeah, they did something wrong, only the kids involved in this case are going to be admitted to white schools. That's it. But one thing about Chancellor Seats, however the fuck you say his name, he didn't say that the school board violated the 14th Amendment, which is a very large issue for me. Now, Delaware school board was not fucking happy about this at all. And like you'll notice in a lot of these cases, actually all of these cases, the schools that were required to integrate, they either shut the schools down or they hired the KKK to scare the students, or to burn the schools, to burn the schools down, black schools down. There were a lot of cases like that during this time. When it was time to integrate, they would much rather burn the schools down than to teach black kids. But yeah, that is the end of Belton v. Bula, or Belton or Bula v. Gephardt. When I say V, I'm saying Belton versus Gephardt or Bula versus Gephardt. There's two names under one case. Mind you, this case is under Brown v. Board of Education, so it's a lot of moving parts. But yeah, that is the end of this one. I don't know which one we're going to go next, but stay tuned. This is actually just part 3 of this series. I'm like a 7-part series. But yeah, if you're new here, I teach Black history. Go ahead and give me a follow. You can buy one of these, which is a lapel, or my necklace, tap in my link tree. But yeah, help support teaching Black history in schools. I have a nonprofit. Help me out. Tap my link tree and push all the buttons. Love ya.
People in their 20s, 30s, and early 40s are always busy, doing absolutely nothing. So here's what I mean by busy. Please do not call, do not text, and do not send anybody looking for me. I will not be available. Why is that? Because at that time, date, and place, I will be in the comforts of my home, enjoying every single inch of the place that I pay for. Do not call.